Welcome to Moments, the podcast, where we have conversations that matter. Hi, everyone. My name is Vasia Makris, your host and founder of Moments, a creative agency bridging art, culture, and technology. Joined by my amazing co-host, HardArt, each week we host a live X space deep diving into hot topics that are shaping the Web3 ecosystem.
GM. Oh my God, Milton. Honestly, I needed that song today. That got me hyped, that got me energized, and I'm ready for this conversation today. GM, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining. We are here for episode 4. Before we begin, I'm going to just pull the whole let's massage the algo, let's tweet this out, let's get the room filled up. If you guys can retweet and throw some emojis, throw some comments, whatever's going to make Uncle Elon happy, as Milton likes to put it. And as we do that, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping and a bit of an introduction for those maybe not familiar with the podcast layout. So this is Moments, the podcast. It's something we are rolling out and building up. This is technically episode 4. So essentially, Milton and I have been hosting weekly Twitter spaces every Wednesday, 1 p.m. Eastern, trying to just bring up important conversations that need to happen in this space. And we've been going through our feeds. We've been finding tweets that have been posing, like people posing interesting questions, interesting conversations, and things that have been getting a lot of engagement. So today's main conversation is pinned up top. We're going to be introducing Yanni and kind of going through it. But our goal with these spaces is really just to open up the floor and create an environment where, number one, we're having even sometimes uncomfortable conversations or starting a bit of a debate, but making sure that we're doing so in a respectful kind of way where people feel comfortable to join the stage, share their thoughts, and again, just kind of getting as many people involved in the conversation as possible. And we are recording these spaces. Milton and I have been testing out some of the video in the background. We're kind of learning how to be podcasters, essentially. And we're going to be dropping this on Spotify, on YouTube, and all those other platforms with the main goal of essentially like Twitter spaces are great, but I hate the fact that they just get lost in Twitterland and then we can never reference them. And I think it's really important to start creating an archive of these, important conversations. So that's kind of the main goal. I don't know if it's technically considered a podcast, but I've named it that. So we're going to roll with it. And yeah, I just want to kick off and say GM to Milton. How are you?
GM, and fuck respect. Let's fight on this show. No, let's speak our minds. Respect, I kid, of course. Respect is a good way to approach this. I think there's going to be some strong reactions, but I think if everybody can defend themselves in a civil format, that's going to be nice. And I think this conversation is actually going to tie into a conversation that we want to have next week. I think we've already figured out which topic we want to tackle next week, and we'll touch on that, though we don't want to dive down that rabbit hole. I figured I would go ahead and preface that. We'll remind everybody. And as far as housekeeping is concerned, I want to do 2 things. One is to give some shout outs. So obviously we've got Yanni here on stage with us. We're super glad to have him here. He's the one who started this conversation. So we appreciate that conversation starter. We've got No Creative. Chris is in the building. Paper Buddha is here. Rob, our previous guest who started our last chat, is with us here. We've got Woman. We've got Dogecoin Fam. We've got Jose. We've got Bogus. We've got Yet. And we've got Manic. So again, do us a favor and make sure to retweet because we're a little behind what we had as far as listenership last time. So let's fill the room out because we know that this is going to stimulate a good discussion. We'd love to have as much feedback as possible. Again, this show is meant to be an open floor. We have had lots of guests on stage. Again, we would welcome guests to come back on stage with us today. And that being said, I just wanted to mention that we do have an hour cutoff. So we like to keep this to an hour. There is going to be a time if a bunch of people want to jump up on stage, which we hope will happen, that I'm going to ask our guests to keep it to a 2 to 3 minute response. I do have this sound effect. If it starts to run long, I'm going to give you a 10-second heads up that the floor is about to disappear for you. So try and get those last few comments and ideas in before that 10 seconds is up. But I'll give you that clue via that sound effect with the TikTok. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting this chat started. I think there's a big challenge right now. I find a challenge for myself actually in this regard. So I'm curious to hear from somebody as well regarded as Giannis is as a collector, how he goes about finding and discovering, hopefully organically, so he can give us some recommendations, how we can go about doing that. I know Rob has had some has had some topics out here about how to go about doing that. And I've also seen some good threads from people that are going on, like Parachica, for example, who is sending out threads of, let's say, 10 to 20 artists that's helping discovery. Again, I don't know if that falls into the category of following the herd or not. That's up for debate today. That's the whole purpose of the conversation. But yeah, I've seen some good ways that people are sharing and some discovery, but I think there is more that we can do. And I'd love to hear some suggestions in the crowd today. So excited to start this chat off. Thanks, Vasia.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so without further ado, let's just jump right in. I'm super excited to have Yanni on today. I actually had a chance to meet him in Greece. I was visiting Athens and just hit him up, and we got to connect in person and had a lot of good conversations in person. So it just made sense that, of course, I was scrolling and saw his tweet this week, and yeah, I definitely wanted to highlight this one. So I'm just going to read it out for those that haven't had a chance to look at it. It's also pinned up top. So he starts off by writing, "I won't name names, but it's funny what has been said and what will be said by certain individuals in order to pump their bags in the next few years. Works equally for art and crypto, but I'm mostly talking about art. Artists who haven't been artists for more than a few years are being labeled some of the most important artists alive right now. There are many artists who aren't doing anything innovating or interesting, but are being pumped by a select few. Don't blindly follow trends or the advice of people who have not even been in the art space for more than a couple of years. We've already seen countless artists pump during bull runs out of the blue and then forgotten quicker than how fast they rose to stardom. Collect what you love with as little outside interference as possible. Create your own conviction based on your own criteria and beliefs. Art in the end of the day is subjective, but man, I'm tired of reading some of this stuff so regularly." And then he follows up at the end of the thread, just clarifying that this was not a personal attack on anyone, that Yanni himself has fallen for hype trains in the past, and it's okay to learn from those mistakes, and that there is a difference between being inspired by a collector and artist and seeing them kind of promote work versus blindly following what they told you is good. So I just want to mention that real quick. Milton, I do see a hand up, but I also was going to swing you the mic to intro Yanni and have him come on stage.
Yeah, just one more point of housekeeping. Today, let's not mention names because I don't think that that's important. So let's keep names out of our mouths. I don't think anybody planned to. I think that goes without saying, but let's not name any individual artists when we're talking about this topic. Again, on the theme of respectful, I think that's smart to do. But yeah, I would love to introduce Giannis here. Yanni and I met at NFC Lisbon last year briefly outside where I like to hang out, which is near the beer tent. So I got to say hello there for the first time. It was good to connect with him. And yeah, I will make sure I don't do the mistake that I've done before and give a massive long intro. I'll let Yanni do most of the intro for himself, but I know that Yanni is part of investing with Amplify Global. He's part of some collecting efforts through Museum of NFT Art and Narcissist Gallery, and he's also building with Couch Heroes. So if he wants to build on that intro, feel free, Yanni. But GM, and welcome to the stage, my friend. How are you?
Hey everyone, thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be here. Yeah, that was a great intro. I'm not gonna expand more on it. Just a big, quick recap from my side. I've been in crypto for the last 7 years actively. I've been in NFTs on the gaming side since 2018, and on the art side since 2020. I'm mainly in the space of gaming in terms of work through Couch Heroes, a startup we started with a couple of friends a few years ago. But I'm also starting to get more involved in an art-focused startup that I can't share much yet, but I'm sure we're going to be able to share more in the coming months.
Awesome, Yanni. Thank you for the intro. And I did want to ask, what kind of made you tweet this the other day? What inspired you to put this out there?
To be honest, a Greek friend of mine, maybe a month ago, told me I wasn't very active on Twitter anymore, and I should share more of my opinions and beliefs, because he valued them and he believed other people would value them. But it's basically me returning back to my roots and being more active on Twitter and sharing more of the things I want to say without obviously bad mouthing anyone, because I think that doesn't amount to anything. We can, criticize people or events or even companies without needing to badmouth them. So, after a lot of conversations with friends, IRL and online, I felt that was something I needed to say after seeing some particular tweets. Yeah.
Yeah, keeping it classy, sir. I love that. And I really respect that you delivered a message and communicated your thoughts while doing so respectfully. And Milton said it earlier. I definitely want to make sure that the entire conversation today stays that way too. Like, there's no need to name names. If you know, you know. But more importantly, it's just about, opening up the conversation. And Milton, I think I kind of cut you off there. If you wanted to jump in, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm glad that Yanni came back and is more active to start this conversation. I think we've seen a lot of people come out of their shells recently, and it's constructive. This should be constructive criticism. And I think this is a time that we're here to grow. If you're still here, you give a shit about this space, which is nice because everybody I see in the room is very art focused. They're either a creator, a collector, or a builder in the space. So I'm excited to have a constructive criticism conversation today, and I know we'll keep it respectful. But yes, I am glad, Yanni, that you started this conversation and looking forward to it. So you talked about what inspired the tweet. I think Vasia, before we got into a little more deeper conversation on your end, I think Vasia wanted to share some initial responses that she had on this tweet, and then perhaps I can chime in. But Vasia, why don't you start that convo there?
Yeah, absolutely. And Yanni, feel free at any point, by the way, to just jump in and contribute to the conversation. And we'll open it up to people as well. If people want to start either requesting or just dropping comments on the thread down below, we'll also be referencing those. But yeah, I mean, I pretty much 100% agree. And the reason I wanted to have this conversation is because from personal experience, I feel like, building with a lot of people, especially seeing things behind the scenes, like I've definitely seen things that I don't agree with, but I've been sitting quietly on the sidelines. And I kind of want to change that narrative because I think it does much of a problem when you're silent and you see things that you don't agree with, but you're not vocalizing it. So I respect you a lot for just putting your opinion out there. And yeah, again, I agree with everything you said. And the pumping the bags is, I think, the first kind of component. Like you mentioned a few things that I want to dissect in the tweet, and pumping bags are the first thing that you brought up. And I definitely agree with you. There's certain individuals that they do pump bags. I do think the hype train is what kind of caught my attention more. And this is something that I think happens in the real world. It's not just, Web3 or art. I think it's just the whole influencer culture that we live in with social media and everything. And people will blindly follow these influencers, which I think is a huge problem just for society. I mean, we're not thinking independently. We are blindly following people and don't even do research to see if there's any merit behind it. And it goes down to like following the herd versus being a leader. And so yeah, I think it's just an important conversation to have. Unfortunately, I'm kind of torn. I think this is a bit of a dilemma of like, can this actually change, or is it just human nature? And this is where I think even the name of my space, like, is there any hope? Like, will this ever change? And that was kind of the conversation I wanted to bring up. And, Yanni, feel free if you want to jump in and answer that, or obviously anyone down below. I want to hear people's opinions and thoughts just in general about this conversation. And maybe Milton, I'll swing it to you if you want to kind of give your 2 cents on what you thought of the tweet initially, and yeah, we can just open up the floor after.
Yeah, sure. I'm happy to start. And actually, my response is more of a question, because my question is, in Web3, there was this interesting promise where you could have a creator go direct to consumer. And in doing so, you could skip a gallery and a lot of the fees that come along with it. Now, that's not to say that a gallery doesn't have a purpose, because I think as we're sorely finding out now, when the market dries up, there's a need for people to be representatives or team members or proponents of the artist, like a gallery would do. And so my question is, there was this interesting dynamic that took place where, again, the creator went direct to the consumer, but then the consumer, maybe for one of the first times, had more of a voice. The collector could come in and be this proponent really unpaid. But I suppose the payment was to pump their bags potentially. But either organically, they literally wanted to spread the word because they found so much merit in this artist, or they found that they were so interesting or so unique or so individual or so new or so fresh. Whatever they found merit in that artist, they wanted to preach and spread the gospel of. However, where do you draw that line? Because at the end of the day, this is a very financialized instrument that we're trading in. NFTs are simply a package. We're trying to eliminate that word because it's a tech word, but it is tied to crypto. Crypto is very speculative, and it is a good instrument for selling. There's a market for these 24/7, 365. Whether there's actually bids or not is a different discussion. But in theory, this is a very good mechanism for sales purposes. So that being said, where does one draw the line? If I'm being a proponent for a small artist and I have quite a bit of that art, am I shilling? Am I pumping? Or am I simply trying to get that artist out? So I'm curious what Yanni's take is on that, and I think I'll leave the mic to Yanni to answer that.
No, that's actually a great point. And I'm a big proponent of that because as you mentioned before, I love organically finding about art and artists, and that usually happens through other artists promoting work of other artists, or collectors, showcasing and highlighting pieces or artists they've collected. And that's a great way to find new works and new artists. Like, I don't get me wrong, not any type of highlighting and promoting is pumping your bags. And in the end of the day, if you're investing and collecting an artist, you believe in them and you want to show the world, your belief in them. So it's not pumping per se, it's showing your belief. But like you said, there is a fine line. When you cross it, it becomes literal pumping. And that's one of the reasons I tweeted out. I saw some very, very far-fetched statements about artists in our space who, some of them have not been artists for a long time. And I've seen collectors or funds claim that they're some of the most important living artists alive right now, which is, even if you believe that, it's quite a stretch especially about an artist who's, few years old in terms of their involvement in the art world. It's not a big constraint in terms of, being just a few years in this space. You might have talent, you might be innovating, you might be doing something exciting, something new, but it would be great for people to form their thesis and be able to articulate that in a more sophisticated way, and not like they're shilling the next shitcoin that they bought, right?
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I do think that, like Milton mentioned, like there is that fine line, like you just clarified for us, and where that fine line is. I think it's super interesting because I also believe that there's a few of these people that are kind of pumping, let's say, but doing so in a way where I don't want to say they don't have that ill intention in a sense. Like I think that they think that they're doing good, or a part of it is also like ignorance is bliss. I think a lot of collectors in Web3 have come from a background of not collecting. So they may be like not as familiar with certain existing artists who have a larger history, who have been in the art world for a very long time. And if they're not aware, I feel like that is also a contributor to the problem. I don't know if that makes sense, Milton, or if you have any thoughts on that, but I don't know. I just feel like a lot of it is also because of the space being so new and the collector base being newer to just the industry itself, that they can't even relate. Like there are a lot of parallels in the traditional art world and the contemporary art world. And many people don't see those parallels because they don't have the experience in a way.
Yeah, I can chime in on that because I'm a collector with no experience except for Web3. So I feel like I'm learning traditional art slowly but surely via Web3 and working almost my way in reverse. So that's why I posed that question earlier. I wonder where that line is drawn, and I suppose maybe this boils down to the conversation of kind of the cabal. Again, without naming names, I can think of a few instances in the past where there were some newer artists that were essentially championed by influencers, by KOLs, by people who have very close ties with the press. And I can think of that where that was certainly going to help them exit those positions in art. Again, thinking of them in very financialized terms, like position, I just called it. But these, there were some collectors that I've heard through the grapevine collected some early one-of-ones of some newer burgeoning artists, and then jumped on the rooftops at whatever channels they had at their disposal to pump the story, to pump the narrative of that artist, to pump their artists that they had collected early on. So I don't know if it's in specific reference to that, but Yanni, maybe you can chime in on that. I imagine this doesn't extend so much to smaller artists, but I could be wrong. But Yanni, I'd love to know your take on that. And then maybe transitioning the conversation a little bit is, what can people do as far as discovery? Because I think I still personally struggle with this. Again, being a newer collector, starting in 2020, late 2020, really only 3 to 4 years. So what can we do? Because Unknown Collector, for example, says he scrolls through object. Some people look through the wallets of artists, which I thought was interesting. So I'd love to know your take on what you do for discovery as well.
Yeah, sure. I'm just gonna add to your point that the majority of the space is young, especially on the collector side, including myself. I'm not an expert. I've been in the art space for 4 or 5 years now. I'm learning more and more every day, but I try to keep myself grounded because I know I'm new. I still have a lot to learn, and I try not to make these insane statements about all artists and art that I have. I do have massive conviction in specific artists that are in my collections, but I'm not going to convey that in an extreme way online. But I think we're missing a lot of education in this space. That's one problem. A second problem is that a lot of people don't care or don't want to or don't have the time to get educated. So it's the easy solution to just follow the trend, follow the safe path, follow the path that your favorite influencer has set out for you and for all the other sheep. And I'm sorry if that sounds harsh, but there is this sheep mentality. And if we're being honest, this is also true for the trad art world. It's not just true for NFTs and the digital art space, which is relatively younger. So yeah, I agree 100%. In terms of discovery, I would say a lot of people think of this process as a race. I disagree. People have to take their time to discover artists because it is a journey. It is a very interesting procedure, finding out artists, finding art that speaks to you and delving deeper to the older pieces that this artist has made or the pieces he's working on now. I'm not gonna not gonna pretend there's one perfect place to do this. Again, I love finding art from other people, especially artists, because they have more insights. They have, in many cases, good taste. So that's my main source of if I'm being honest, of finding new works. It's through other collectors and artists. But I will, from time to time, find an artist through my Instagram account. I will find an artist by, reading threads. There is no perfect recipe. You have to be active in the space. You have to look around. It's the same with crypto. There is no one magic site or database where you're going to find all the information you want. That's what most people, when they enter the space, ask me, like, give me a site where I'm going to find all the information I want. No, this doesn't exist. You actually have to work for it. And it's the same with finding out new work.
Okay, I love, there's two things I want to mention that you just pointed out. First of all, the concept of time and slowing down and not rushing. I think the biggest, like, as the space has evolved where people are moving slower and they're moving smarter, because originally in 2021 and market flowing in and people were just throwing money around like crazy, like things were moving too fast and people were just looking for the next big thing. And I think that was, part of the correction and part of the market. Kind of in a bear market, we do need to move smarter, and also just naturally people learn from their mistakes. I also want to bring up the point that you're making regarding discovering, and I didn't want to go too deep into this, especially because this week I think a lot has been said about marketplaces. But for me, that's what a marketplace is. The marketplace is meant to kind of curate and be this one platform where everyone goes to. It's like Amazon. That's how I used to compare it. Like Amazon and eBay, it was Nifty Gateway and OpenSea or whatever. Like people would go on, you're looking for something specific, but everything is congregated in one place where there's some kind of verification going on. Like you're not going to, and that's what marketplaces, I think, the role that they should be playing in this space, where it's like they might have their curated higher level, quote unquote, blue chips, and then they have emerging artists and they kind of curate accordingly. And I think that's what's lacking in this space in a lot of these instances, where unfortunately, because we don't have established, in my personal opinion, anymore, that people are going elsewhere and people are looking at individuals over marketplaces at this point, which in turn just feeds the whole pumping your bags, and that gets a little bit of a gray area. So I don't want to again dive too deep into marketplaces today, but that I think is part of the huge problem. I did want to say GM to Chaz. I know he just joined, and I was also going to bring up a comment from the thread that one of the artists made, but I just wanted to, Chaz, GM, I don't know if you wanted to jump in and contribute.
I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I've actually made a couple of posts about it. They're up on my timeline somewhere, where I actually like sat down and really thought out like what I wanted to say and how I wanted to say it. And, like, if anybody wants to go look those up, because like I don't want to go like deep right now. You know what I mean? Because I think there's hope. There's like I just been like weighing options and like entertaining different different things. Like, I mean, maybe it's time that I teach myself the skill of how to like build my own website that has like a small marketplace on it that I can just like I can still have stuff listed on marketplaces, but I can also have them double down on my website for you to collect to or point there when I have my own contracts, stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, there's hope, but it's just like we just got to get our proverbial crap together and start help people. We have to stop being so greedy and start like working with each other, because that's the only way this is going to survive. That's my own opinion. I mean, I've seen a lot of communities come and go, not just in Web3, like out in the art world too. I've been in a lot of very, very underground art scenes since like the early 90s, late 80s. So I've seen a lot come and go, and it's been. I don't want to see this one to come and go. You know what I mean? I want to do everything I can. I posted I said somebody's post. I think it was on Brav's post actually yesterday about like, a lot lately. I've been coming to mind of like this the old school quote of "it takes a village," and I think I feel like we're all. This is like the baby years of like this community, and like sometimes it takes a village to raise a child. And then we're right now this community is childish. It's small.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So, and we're
Definitely.
the village. Yeah. What are we going to do about that? How are we going to do that? You know what I mean? How are we going to pivot to stop being so freaking greedy and so self-centered and actually work together, where we can all strive and like accomplish something like as a group instead of individuals? I think that's the key.
Hey, Chaz, I like what you said there, man. And thanks for that contribution for sure. I think it's definitely going to take a village. I think the village is here in the space right now. If you're taking part in this conversation, you want to be part of that solution. I wanted to touch on something you said as well about your website. So again, this is going to be a future conversation, so I won't go down the rabbit hole, but we all know that marketplaces are disappearing before our eyes. And it's really sad to see. I know that some artists are heartbroken to see that happen, because that's maybe where they minted their Genesis piece, for example, or maybe that's where they built their portfolio. And so you touched on the idea of having your own website. I think that's great for persevering through this space. And yeah, I don't know what the answer is as far as keeping it alive. It's going to take people like us to do so. But yeah, I'm certainly hoping that we do see some marketplaces stay in business, and like Vasia mentioned, do a good job of helping bring to the table some not gate kept, but some level of curated presentation of artists that are established. And maybe we have smart people like Yanni, who's done the vetting of that and knows that these aren't artists that popped up last week and might disappear the following, that they have maybe a history. I think this conversation, we wanted to actually explore a little bit of what a checklist might look like if you're vetting some artists. If it boils down to you and the marketplace isn't doing that, which we don't have the luxury of right now in a lot of instances because the marketplaces simply aren't there, what that maybe checklist looks like. So I'd love to hear Yanni chime in, or Chaz chime in on that, or PB, who just joined the stage. So on that note, I will pass the mic to PB because I'm excited to hear from him. And it's been too long. I haven't heard his voice in a while. So Paper Buddha, how you doing, man? Welcome to the stage.
Good. What's up, everybody? I just wanted to kind of touch on the platform thing. I'm actually really surprised. Y'all are surprised about the platforms going down and the discoverability of platforms, right? Like my Genesis piece on ETH was minted on Foundation and it was great. It sold for a couple of ETH and, back in the day, and you had to get an invite and all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. I have zero feelings about Foundation going down. I built a relationship with that collector. We're great. We were great the second that collector collected that thing. I've got the backup if we ever need to mint it because he doesn't have access. No problem. We're good buddies. He's part of my community. I can think of a ton of other platforms, right? Object on Tezos. I've been punk rocking there forever, never getting discovery through the Object front page, always through personal relationships and DMs and community. Took me 500 days or something to get on Super Rare. Had curated releases on Super Rare that fell completely flat. The only things I've ever sold on Super Rare were from my own community, from the people I already knew. So I think it's really important for artists to hear this, that that platform really wasn't doing shit for your discovery unless you were Xcopy. So not to drop names, my bad, unless you're a blue chip artist and at the top of the pile, you're not getting helped with your discovery on any of these platforms, even if you're on the front page for a day or 2 days or 3 days. That's not going to change nothing for your discovery. What will is building community, building relationships, taking control of your owned media, not your rented media. So that's your website. Making sure your websites are ready to rock and roll. Making sure that when you hit boots on the ground at an NFT conference, you've got prints ready. These are this is just business acumen. This has nothing to do with Web3. Be ready to accept the currency that you're doing business in, right? So set up a wallet if you want to accept Solana. Those are the kind of things that you just have to think about. You're running a business. And I know it sucks. I want to just make art all day. But the reality is I'm on social media 5-6 hours a day. I'm figuring out how these websites work. I'm figuring out who's my best dance partners. I'm doing managing a CRM. I've got a spreadsheet full of my collectors and all the places things have been linked. This is called running a business. So it's the unfortunate reality of crypto art is you got to do the crypto stuff too. And taking a step back and just having a healthy, holistic view, I think, will insulate you from feeling a way about a platform going down. Who cares? These platforms, honestly, if I'm going to be completely frank with everybody in the room, the point of Web3 and the blockchain was to remove these people from between me and my collector and between me and my customer, right? I think the productive thing we can talk about is how to have better curation, how to have better, the things that are working. The things that are working are these art clubs, the meme collections, thinking about all these places where collectors are coming together and they're getting drops throughout the month that are a little bit more curated. I find that to be a more authentic way of discovery. So that's just kind of my 2 cents.
Yanni, I want to swing the mic to you. I feel like you have a response for PB. Go ahead.
No, I just I don't wanna get very deep into it because I know you said that you want to talk about this in another space. But marketplaces there's 2 types of marketplaces. There's open marketplaces where anyone can go mint. They're open, they're free, which is great, which does go well with the ethos of the space, like Paper Buddha just mentioned. But then there's also, marketplaces that are closed. There's proper curation going on. That's how Super Rare used to be. But there's always going to be people who complain about such marketplaces. I'm sure, Super Rare and other marketplaces haven't done a lot for, smaller and many artists, but, marketplaces in a way are essentially a form of a gallery. They are there to help, with marketing, to help bring potential collectors. But the biggest issue in my mind that these marketplaces or even galleries are not doing is that they're just trying and focusing on Web3 specific collectors. They're not doing their best in attracting traditional art collectors, having physical presence in traditional art shows, expanding their clientele, or even if they do have traditional art clientele, they're not taking the risk to either market through their main market channels or approach their clientele to get them in more Web3 digital art. That's one of the biggest issues. And I don't want to hog the mic, but I think again, I agree. Crypto is and Web3 has the ethos of decentralizing, removing the middleman. But the reality is that many, and when I say many, I mean the majority, sadly, of artists are amazing artists, but they honestly suck at everything else. And what do I mean by everything else? That's marketing, that's finance, that's everything else that has nothing to do with the creative process. So for artists like them, they really need someone like a gallery. It doesn't need to be a gallery. It can be, someone working independently, not in a gallery. But a gallery takes that burden off the artist so they can focus 100% on what they're great at, which is their art. So I think galleries are not, the devil that we've made them be in Web3. They have stuff to offer the space, especially artists. So I think it's more of how they act in the space and how they actually help and how they promote Web3 digital art to their Web2, or, people don't like me saying that, but the traditional art crowd.
Yeah, and I think, Yanni, that came up in an earlier space as well, as we were talking about like artist management services and kind of just, what Chaz mentioned, you need a village. Like, it's not easy to do this on your own. Although Paper Buddha, thank you for contributing. I definitely agree with what you're saying. And I've seen you in person at events. I see the way that you move and the community that you've been building. And absolutely, that contributes to a lot of the sales that you've made and growing your following. I think and I know we said we wouldn't go too deep into marketplaces, but I just want to say that for me, when I think about marketplaces, I also look at it from a consumer perspective, where as we're trying to onboard and get new people in, we need to redirect them somewhere where, again, it's like a verified source. Like if I'm new to NFTs and collecting digital art, I want to go somewhere where I feel more secure, that I'm not buying something that, isn't legitimate, and having a platform that, again, has a very diverse curation. Like I think of Nifty Gateway back when it was, for me, the peak was when they had their curated, which was like Nifty's team curating the blue chips, those types of artists, and they had their drops once or twice a week. And then they had the verified, where they chose select collectors and curators and certain galleries or people in the space who then could release on their own. But again, they were verified. Like they had some sort of credentials as to why they had the ability and opportunity to bring in their own group of artists and present collections. So I do think marketplaces are needed. And if you do kind of remove them, it goes back to what Yanni was just mentioning, having some kind of team around you to help, build this. But again, I think marketplace is like an entire conversation that we might be having next week, just based off of what's been going on this week in the space. And obviously the news with Foundation and pivots that are being made. I do want to quickly kind of go back to the original thread. I know that there was a comment made by Adil, who's an artist in the space. It's actually her birthday today, so our girl couldn't make it, but she brought up a good point, just going back to, again, the whole pumping your own bags and hype trains. And I pinned it up top, but I'm just going to read it quickly out loud as well. She says, the problem is people genuinely don't know their taste. Following the herd is easier to be accepted in the community and most likely for their wallets. It's hard to break the cycle, which makes it so much more important sharing art and artists you love within your circle. So I honestly read this and immediately thought of high school. Like, you know, when the kids in high school, like everyone was wearing one certain thing and that made them like, you wanted to be like the cool kids and everyone had to like have that certain thing. And same thing as today, to be honest with you. What am I saying? A lot of adults, like everyone needs to have that Gucci bag or that label or the whatever. And, you know, people just feel more accepted when they have these types of things and they feel like it's a flex. I don't know. I just felt like it was very surface level, that type of mentality, which is probably why it doesn't resonate with me. I thought that maybe we were just a bit more mature than that. Like I understand perhaps from an investment purpose, where you want to maybe, it's like if you're a collecting in the contemporary art world and you know, you have a lot of money, you're trying to collect something, you're going to collect an Andy Warhol or some, you know, a screen print or something like that because it's the name. But again, I think that it's very surface level. So I know Chris just immediately jumped on. I don't know if he wanted to comment back to me, but GM, Chris, what are your thoughts on today's conversation?
Hey, can you hear me? Because I'm on my laptop and this
Yeah,
is
perfect.
okay.
You're good.
Cool. Well, I just thank you for the conversation. This is and how refreshing it is to have some people actually talking about what's going on in the space. It's nice. I miss Icky. Like this reminds me a lot of Icky. Me and him used to have extensive conversations about the herd mentality, which you just touched on. And we've seen it again and again with people doing the FOMO crypto playbook, right? They come in, they start buying art from artists, and you buy yourself a following. And at some point during this art buying and accumulation of artists who's desperate to sell, you pivot to selling something to the artists instead, which has worked very well. You also like I'm just going to recap. You also touched upon like the buying the artist before anyone and like having yourself as an influencer, buying a little artist and getting a couple of his pieces, getting your friends to buy them, and then like dropping a massive amount on that artist, making them blow up, and then selling off the pieces you got for cheap. Like we've seen that being done, and it's just happening all the time. But it's crypto, right? It's called cryptocurrency. People are here to make money. You have to expect it. Same shit happens in the trad world. I came from the trad world. Same shit happened there. Like it's not a new thing. It sucks, and we absolutely need better curation in the space. I feel like there's room for the platforms that can house everyone, where everyone can mint. We got the open seas, we got the open seas with confetti, aka foundation. We got the makers places and we got the super rares, and I don't know what Nifty Gateway is doing now, but like they used to be a thing and then they kind of weren't a thing, and then they used to be a thing again, and then they kind of stopped being a thing, and that sucks because they were actually a good thing, but I feel like they ate themselves. Like a lot of these marketplaces has done. But yeah, it comes down to curation. That's why in the real, I hate saying the real world because it's not the real world, the traditional world. People are paid to be curators. It's a line of job. It's something you're serious about. It's something you think about. It's something you put research into so that you can, with confidence, tell another person who wants to invest in art, either as like a hobby or as an investment, that this is good art and this is why. Not because it's an 18-year-old guy who pirated Cinema 4D, got a bunch of assets, filled the room with water, and spread the lily pads all over the place. Or a million other examples of spacemen in various kind of scenes. And one last thing before I'm hugging the mic, but one last thing, that the space is also very much when it's went away from art and gone into what I would consider to be fast art. We have the gen art, like stuff you can just like you build a machine and it spits out a bunch of squares and circles, and people are like, oh my god, it's fucking amazing. Yeah, I typed in 23 and it gave me it's a random number generator. Shut up. And we got the AI artists, quote unquote. There's some really good AI artists out there. There's also a lot of people who's built a following and are now artists. And then we just have the people who came in and was like, hey, I can make money of this and I don't even have to learn a skill and just type, woo, let's go. And they're doing very well. And I respect it. It's a hustle. Go you.
Oh my God, I love having you on stage, Chris. You mentioned a lot of good points. I did see a few hands immediately pop up, so I'm going to hand the mic over. I do want to just say, yeah, Nifty Gateway, I will forever be heartbroken. I think it was like they were the one that got away. For me, I think they were the one that was going to make a huge impact. And unfortunately, I'm not a fan of the pivots that they've made. But I'm going to hand it over to Paper Buddha first. I saw the hand immediately shoot up while you were speaking. So go ahead, PB. All you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, Chris, that was good. Great little speech there. You know, I can relate a lot to everything that you're talking about. Just happened to me. A collector hit me in the DM. They said, we're going to pump your bags. Give me a discount on 5 fucking blah, blah, blahs. And in exchange, I can bring all these influencers like I did over here and like I did over there. And I was like, thinking to myself, this fucking guy has never even looked at my art. Literally has not looked at my art. Literally a white guy from a very affluent neighborhood in the United States. I make Buddhist art. This guy is not anywhere near that, right? He has no idea what a tonka is. He's got no idea what pigments are, and so I'm constantly faced, especially because of the subject matter of my art and the fact that the majority of crypto people are Westerners in America. I have a really hard time with people when they're like, oh yeah, I collect art. I'm like, what do you know about art, bro? I'm like here at the museum talking about art with the curators at the museum. And you're like sleeping on me and you're buying some weird shit that somebody made, like Chris just said, some weird squares and zeros, So anyway, it's a thing, and I think it comes back to what we were talking about earlier with an education problem about art. What is art? What is good art? What is fast art? What are all these different things, right? And I can speak for myself. I came in here in the middle of a midlife crisis, switching professions, becoming an artist, right? So it's been a 4 or 5 year journey of me becoming an artist and learning all this stuff from the ground up, right? But I'm deadly serious about my art and my practice, and I think that there's like, how do we curate that? How do we show people like, no, these are the people that are like really going to museums. Like I can think of a ton of other people. Like I'll throw Rafik Anadol out there. How do we highlight people like this that are working so diligently in the upper echelons of art and separate them from someone that's just fucking around for all intents and purposes?
Yeah, that's a good point. And I did mention earlier about newer collectors, and I was not meant to throw any type of shade because same here, same experience. My background is not in art, and a lot of it is learning as we go and building that foundation. But yeah, I think you make a really good point. At the end of the day, I think people are going to just, it's human nature, the whole pumping bags or supporting, certain individuals. But let's at least make sure we're supporting the right ones, is I think my key takeaway. So I'm completely with you on that one. And Yanni, I know your hand was up from before, so go ahead. Feel free to share.
Yeah, I'll just keep it short. I just want to add a bit on what Chris said. I think because of the pure nature of crypto, everything gets amplified really quickly. It really, it's easy when you've made a lot of magic internet money out of thin air, to want to spend it, and it's easier to spend it digitally than physically. You find yourself spending it on NFTs. It's like the natural cycle, or at least what has happened the last few years. So it does make sense that people are gonna invest their crypto gains into NFTs, and it's gonna make sense that they invested in what is hot right now, what makes sense financially, what's gonna get them, status in the community, like we saw back in the day with everyone buying a punk, and that instantly made them legitimate for some reason back in the day. But yeah, it's again, it's the nature of crypto. Everything happens really quickly. Things can pump really out of proportion really quickly, and dump at the same speed as well, or even faster. But that's kind of, the effect that the nature of crypto has on NFTs and digital art. That's obviously not how the traditional art world works, and it's not something which is sustainable 100%. I don't care what anyone says, but this is not sustainable. This is very short-term thinking, from a financial perspective, but also, from every other perspective. So I think everyone needs to, take their time, think about the long term. Except if you're in this 100% for a financial reason, and you're one of the, thousands of opportunists, which, okay, I respect that to an extent. You're here to just make money, but you don't need to, destroy the whole space in the meantime.
Yeah, and I don't think it's just limited to Milton. I know your hand was up. I'll give it to you in a sec. I'm sorry. But I don't think it's just limited to crypto. I think I look at it like as the world in general, as Chris would say, the real world. But it's like old money versus new money to me, where, people that, the crypto bros that have just made a bunch of money in the real world, they're buying the Rolex, they're buying the Ferraris, they're flexing those things as a status symbol and for the clout. And I think it's kind of human nature, where, again, I think it just goes back to, this is just kind of how the world works. So yeah, I don't know if I just wanted to mention that. I think it's a lot about just human psychology, and it's kind of unavoidable that people are going to continue to be buying the status symbols, essentially. But Milton, go ahead. I saw a hand up before.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in as we wrap up towards 6 minutes left before the hour. I know we try to normally keep this to an hour. Great points, everybody on stage, by the way. I wanted to maybe just chime in with a couple of things that I've learned over my collecting career. We're talking about hype trains and maybe not following the crowd is just one thing that I think we have a unique pleasure of doing in this space that probably doesn't exist to the same extent in the trad art world, is to be able to get a connection, a human connection with the artist. I think a lot of artists have open DMs, and oftentimes, like PB said, are on the road. PB's at every event I can ever think of, and he's typically hosting his own event and making a great atmosphere out of it. So there were times that I have collected from big name artists, and I'll keep those names out of my mouth, but I've actually interacted with them, meeting them, and realized that I didn't actually vibe with them. And I didn't particularly love them as a person. It was more of a cordial handshake and kind of like, wow. And then I've collected from a much smaller artist, and I've gotten treatment like I'm family from that artist. And so there's a vast difference there in chasing something that was hot on the market. And you got to realize that even if you've spent a significant amount of money on that artist, it really means nothing. It's a drop in the bucket to them. Whereas if you're supporting a small artist, you get the chance to meet them in person, see them at one of these Web3 events, know that they've been here in Web3 is huge to me as well. But you see how people treat you as a collector. Do they give a damn? So that's just one thing I wanted to chime in. Maybe we could have some, I know we like action items, Vasia, at the end of the show. And of course, I want to have Violet's take on it as well. So happy to run over the hour by a bit so we can get Violet's take here as well. And Chris has got his hand up too. For the comedic purposes alone, because he had me dying laughing earlier, I want Chris back up too. But Violet, I'd love to have your take on this as well. And I'm sure Vasia wants to chime in with some actionable items before we go. But if in doing so and passing the mic, if maybe you could just leave us with one important thing that you, as a collector or even as an artist, you could give suggestions for. I'm all ears as far as finding people organically and maybe some ways to avoid following the herd.
Hi guys,
So,
thank
Violet,
you for having me. I'm so sorry that I'm late to the party, but I was painting, and when I noticed the time, I was like, shit, it's the spaces that I've been waiting for a week. All right, I just chimed in on Chris's rant, and I love his rants. I get them privately as well. Love it. It just makes me like so entertained. So basically, like my 2 cents on the topic is that we are in a pool of all the other projects, meme coins and everything else. And I know that everybody is getting really frustrated But as much as we say, like, don't follow the herd, don't, like, let's not like look at how much money people are doing on meme coins. And it's like the art at the moment, I feel it's separating a little bit. I think the clientele is maturing. The flipping times are over. I feel that now people are getting a true experience what the fucking trad art world is all about. I feel the art is getting like with galleries and stuff, suddenly the platforms, everybody sees that they are just glorified Amazons or eBays. They are not doing anything. So unless you're doing the personal promotion or team up with the agent or get under the gallery wing, where it's going to cost you more than 2.5% or even 10 or 15% that the platform takes, but welcome to the art world. This is like, finally we're maturing, and I'm actually excited about it because it still gives us far bigger exposure and far bigger opportunities and those personal connections. So just keep showing up, keep posting your art, stop getting involved into threads that people post just to get engagement and bait you into ridiculous conversations. Don't scare people off, get a really good website and be professional, because this is your platform. Like, X is kind of where some people might find you, collectors might find you. Go to in real life events, do everything as you've been doing, work hard, and don't panic. We are just transitioning, and those growing pains are going to show people what really art world is like. And it's like, I don't understand this whole panic. It's like, try to live in traditional, like, I think that still Web3 has advantage over traditional art world. So be optimistic, because it's still 1,000 times better. Okay, peace out. Love everybody. Thank you.
I love that. Peace out. Violet, thank you so much for joining. And I think you pretty much summed up my question. Is there any hope? Violet definitely says, yes, there is. And I love that you kind of listed out a few things that we should be doing. I know Chris threw a hand up, and I know Manik also joined stage. So let's throw the mic around. Go ahead, Chris.
Oh, it's me. Shit. I'm just gonna echo Violet and say that Twitter was always the only platform. Like, the rest was just means for mending. And to echo, well, to iterate on something HardArt said, is that there's the whole thing, like, when you start selling art the way we've started, well, us digital native who didn't have, like, who wasn't being taken serious in the art world before, you became the brand right there. You became the brand, and you became your own salesman and all that, on Twitter, not on Maker's Place or Super Rare, wherever. A funny little thing with, like, the meeting the artist and so on is that most galleries don't let buyers of art meet the artists, because complications can happen. So you meet the collector after the piece is sold, because the gallerists don't want the buyer of the art to be like, oh, do you have anything else? And what are you selling that for? So this is like turned upside down, right? And that's gonna be my final spiel. I'm not gonna take up any more time. Love you all.
Yeah, that was a great point, Chris. And actually, I don't know if I should be saying this or not, but it's the same kind of thing with marketplaces in Web3, in all honesty. Like, having worked with pretty much everybody, when the collectors, like, you don't have their information. Like, okay, yeah, you have their username online, and if it matches their Twitter, you can kind of hunt them down, etc. But like, proper communication is like, hey, what's their email? I clearly know you have their email, and artists aren't given that. So I think it also creates that barrier where artists should be building an email list. Like, you should be able to email out all your collectors when you're releasing something new or when you're working on something new. And marketplaces do not give that information. So it kind of goes back to what everyone's been kind of saying. And I know Paper Buddha also mentioned it specifically, like building your own platform, building your own website, getting your community out. And it goes back to the artist being the brand. And absolutely, that is the ethos and kind of magic of Web3. Go ahead, Chris, jump on in.
No, creative.org.
Did you just say .org?
You're pumping your own bags.
Did you just say .org?
Hey.
Now?
I'm
Wait,
the
what?
brand. I'm the brand. I can pump my bags.
No, I love it. Pump, pump, pump. You should be a regular guest, by the way. I think you were a very entertaining speaker on stage. I know Manik also joined the stage. Thank you for listening in. Is there anything you wanted to add to the conversation before we jump?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say thank you for hosting the space. I really enjoyed it. I've been here since the very beginning of the space. Yeah, so I'm an artist in the space going on 4 years. I got my start on Clubhouse. So it's been an amazing, crazy journey. I've learned so much and just improved so much as an artist and just even as a human in general. I've grown a lot from being in the space and met a lot of great people. And a lot of people left. A lot of people are still here. Chaz, a lot of people. What's up to people in the audience that I know? Nice to meet everybody that I don't know. Yeah, so it's been such a grind. Like for me, like I'm open about it. Like I have bipolar and I have my stuff I deal with my mental illness, so it makes it extra challenging in the space because the space is bipolar, and so it just amplifies my highs and lows. So that's extra challenging, but it doesn't stop me from pursuing my passion. Which I have a strong passion and I have a lot of drive. So it's like I haven't even taken a day off in these 4 years, literally. I've been in so many spaces, hosted my own spaces, just on my grind, getting my name out there, because that's how you got to be. If you just don't put yourself out there, nobody's gonna know about you. And so through me being so consistent, showing up every day and introducing myself, like I made my way on Super Rare like this year, and things just really started changing. People start saying like, "Yo, this guy Manic, he's serious. He's still here." And my art's improved a bunch since the beginning, like a lot. Um, I'm now like I'm back on Instagram as well, trying to build my following on there. On TikTok, I'm working on it, so it's just a grind and just putting myself out there. I'm more into physical art now too, so I'm trying to make it in the digital and the physical art world. So yeah, no, I've just been enjoying the space, and so nice to meet everybody here. It's definitely a crazy space, but I feel like I found my tribe, and I relate to a lot of people here. So yeah, thank you for letting me come up.
Hey, I want to chime in, Manic. I feel you. Like 4 years, it feels like you got to be plugged in every day here. I think the benefit that we're seeing right now is that if you're still here, and I'm gonna say this again, hopefully you've got access to your computer screen or your phone and you can scroll through. But look at the people in the crowd. Look seriously, if you're not following them already, these are the people that are dedicated. I'll just name some names. Like Violet was on stage with us. No Creative has been here since the beginning. Manic, you said you've been plugged in for 4 years. Trevor Jones is here. Woman, Abrahani talking about websites has a great one. Nor 44, Paradigm Stories. Like these are the people that are still plugged in. Becca Rios, don't let me forget. David Oxley, another artist here with us. These are the people that are staying tuned in. I think that's a huge signal right now. So when you're looking past the hype, you're looking past the influencers, look in some of these spaces that are happening right now. I feel like we are in a time in the market that I hope is the nadir, is the very bottom. For God's sake, I hope we come out of it soon, but we may not. But look at the people who are here regardless. So I think that's just huge, huge. Take note of. Hopefully you got some of those names if you're not looking at the screen, but make sure you give follows around if you're not already following some of these people. Manic, I'm shooting you a follow. So thanks for coming and saying hello. This is a good discovery process here. But yeah, I wanted to thank everybody for coming up on stage and giving some of that good advice. I think Violet touched on it really well. I feel like there's some maturation happening. I personally, one thing that I think is lacking that I would love to see more of is Chris just talked about this. He said, you've seen a lot of these algorithms spit out, and like, a lot of this algorithmic art is very, very popular and has held its value. But a lot of people, don't know how we make our art. And so Chris does, because Chris is a digitally native artist. I would love to see more process videos. I think that's huge. I think people still need to be educated. I think that's one of the things that Beeple has been so successful in doing. At his studio, he's doing a live every day, which is giving people insight into what it actually takes to make this. And having his digital art death match was huge because you got to see not just him, but you got to see 20 some odd artists doing it in front of your face. You could walk around and see their process. I think that we could use more process videos to show what it's actually like to create this, and that it's not just hitting a button. And then second, I think we could use even more curation, like Chris said, but also writing, people writing about the space. I'll throw out Nina Kanak, for example. NFT Culture does a good job of it. There are some outfits, NFT Now from time to time, but I think
Roger
Dickerman, of course. Yes. Thank you for throwing that one in there. Obvious one. Thanks, PB. Yeah, but I think even more of it could happen. I think we're going to have to mirror the trad art in some ways, in that to have educated people actually speak about this. No Creative said it was refreshing having this conversation, and it's great to have it in this format. But as Vasia said, this gets lost in the Xverse sometimes to never be seen again or heard from again. We're looking to preserve that via more channels that this is being recorded on. But I think having this in writing is also great. So a couple of points I wanted to throw in there before I hand the mic off to Violet. Violet, I see you got your hand raised.
I just wanted to add that Chris has been going to the gym a lot, turning into young Schwarzenegger. So I think that his process videos should be topless.
They can be, and might I add, HardArt, he's buying right now, so you should follow him blindly, and he will buy your art.
Man, look at the time. I gotta go. My meme coin's got to pump first, like Violet said. We're chasing meme coin gains before I can buy art again. Too funny. All right, Chris, time for your process videos, man. We got to see you bulking up. Let's go. Vasia, I know you got action items you always like to touch on. I've given a couple. I'd love to hear yours. We do have one more request, and I have more time today, by the way. So if a couple more people like NB want to jump up and say hello, I'm totally up to it. Ryan requested. Let's get him up. Yeah, so request away. I got some more time to kill. Let's go. We got NB, I believe, was first. We'll go to Ryan next, and then Paper Buddha has his hand raised. So we'll go in that order. NB, GM.
Nice. Wanted to say hi. Some old friends here. How's everyone?
Doing great, man. Good to hear from you. How you doing?
Great, man. I'm excited for Basel. A couple weeks away. I saw Trevor put out another castle post. The thing is opulent. Gives me something to aspire towards. Imagine living in that full time. Like it's astounding. But yeah, man. It's really interesting seeing the whole art market shift, especially our little niche, and it's exciting as well. And I think while these discussions and a lot of the friction we see on the timeline isn't comfortable, it's nice that the conversations are being had and we're getting back to ironing out, some of the issues that never really got addressed after the speculation and the run and everything. So it's I'm just here at this point. I'm holding on. I'm waiting. I'm excited. It's nice seeing so many collectors take a more active interest in the few individuals or few works that really like spoke out to them or really or they felt they connected with. So it's been I think when we go into another cycle, if we go into another cycle, it'll be nice that there's more passionate and educated, but not in that sense, but just being able to convey, the artists and their passion accurately, and that's exciting. So that's my 2 cents. Back to you at the studio, guys.
Thank you, Noah, for jumping on stage. It's good hearing from you. It's been a while. But talk about education. Like if people have seen Noah's threads, I mean, if you're not following him, definitely give him a follow. But you consistently put out these educational threads too, like a lot of information with the trad art world as well that you've taught me a lot of things as well. So when the next cycle comes, because we're manifesting it, okay? When that next cycle comes, I definitely can't wait to see more, like you said, educated and better, I guess, curated decisions. And again, a lot of this was learning curves. So I definitely love it. I'm here for it. I did see a few hands up. Yanni, let's start with you and then we'll go around the room.
No, I just want to add something we were talking about before. If people, like you said, want to get educated on, the origins of computer art and just to, learn more about very important historical figures in computer art, check out NB's threads. They're probably the best stuff out right now, along with obviously Le Random interviews and papers, plus Art Gnome stuff, always a good staple classic. But yeah, just wanted to add that.
Thank you so much.
Yanni, do you mind for me? I'm going to ask you, do you mind just tagging that actually in the threads just so people can reference as well after the space? But I definitely want to make sure we share resources. If others have, good recommendations and you want to point us in the right direction, guys, please feel free to comment below. I'm all about sharing good resources. PB, we'll give you the mic. Go ahead.
Yeah, real quick, I wanted to shout out Woman in the crowd. Woman had a really good tweet earlier that said, if AI can pump a shitcoin, it can do that for my art. It can sell art. And so as we're talking about this transition and as we're talking about new hope on the horizon, I think AI is really untapped when it comes to curation and education around art, right? Like we're talking about how do we educate the collector base that we have here. Well, like they all have AI in their pocket, so maybe just like starting a conversation with your AI agent, you could quickly learn how to pronounce Giclée. You know what I mean? There's some really easy things that can start to teach us about art, but not only that, it can really help with the curation, right? I think back to the Super Rare experiment where they were really experimenting with this idea of a multi-feed curation model, right? Where there's the super rare feed and you can see what they've curated, but then I can look at the Woman NFT feed and I can see what she's curated and who she's important. I click that on. Then I go over to HardArt's curation feed and I like what he's got going on, so I click that on. And now all of a sudden I'm creating my own curated feed, right? It fell a little bit flat because I think there was too much work to do on the back end. But when you start to think about AI and you start to think about multi-curated modes, I think we could be really on the precipice of something totally new with selling our art, reaching new people. And we could just need to look over to the AI camp where it's already pumping meme coins. There's already an autonomous artist named Bato that's fucking selling crazy art, right? So AI knows how to do this. We just have to tap into that. So I think that's ever since I read that tweet of hers, I can't get it out of my head.
I'm like scrolling trying to find it. I love that you brought that up. Thank you so much for bringing it up. And I never thought about it either, but absolutely, why not use these kinds of tools to help and support? Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Manik, go ahead. I see your hands up.
Yeah, I just want to say I got to take off. I got to go to Rare Skrilla Space. I did some art for that project, and which I'm super excited about because, like, if anybody knows Rare Skrilla, it's an OG legend in space. So I got to go over there. But yeah, much love, and I appreciate you hosting the space. And yeah, I'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining.
Thanks.
Go ahead, Milton.
Yeah, thanks, man. Of course, I know Rare Skrilla, Rare Pepe's. Let's go. Yeah, jump over there. Thanks for saying hello. Come tune back in. We're here every week at the same time, Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks for taking the stage for the first time, Manik. We appreciate that. I did want to jump in real quick because earlier I had a rotation and we jumped over Ryan. So I wanted to get to Ryan. I also saw Fami jump on stage, so I wanted to get to Fami as well. But Ryan, you got the mic. GM, how are you?
I'm doing good, man. I just saw the topic and kind of wanted to jump in on it. The pumping bags and hype trains. I think there is hope because I think, as much as people like to bitch and complain about shit coins, I think that they have real potential to actually help an artist out in the community. I mean, I joined one recently and I've been doing collabs with other artists around the world. And I think that it is beneficial to this ecosystem, right? Like I sat on Twitter for months, right? I sat on X for months, whatever. And I see people complaining about sales and complaining about being invisible and complaining about, and I've been in the same boat. Like I've been there too. I haven't sold an NFT in fucking 2 years, man. I don't know. It's been a while. But the thing is that instead of complaining about it, why don't we switch to meme coins? Why don't we try to build something? Why don't we create something that people can stick around? And, artists can, artists like me who don't have a lot of money, who, want to just buy art, use your meme coin gains to buy art from other artists in the community. It just makes sense to me. And I don't know why other people are like, oh, they're just shit coins. They just pump and dumps. But man, isn't that crypto? I mean, isn't that kind of what we're doing anyway? We're selling our artwork on the blockchain. We're selling it for cryptocurrency that's volatile. How is that any different than meme coins? And that's my 2 cents on it.
I can definitely speak on this, Ryan, and we're not going to mention names because I won't pump my own bags, but I know some projects very well that have actually supported artists So I don't think people are looking into that option enough. As a matter of fact, if you'll DM me, there's a project right now that's looking to not only have artists contribute, but they want to give them all the proceeds. This is not something where they're trying to take advantage of artists and get free contributions. So I would love to connect you if you're an artist that wants to get involved with a meme coin project. As dirty as that may sound, then then I think there are some projects that have contributed to the space in a positive way, especially if they're art centric. I mean, Bohm is one. I'll throw that name because I'm not involved. Much cope not getting involved early, but that was Dark Farms. I was an artist who started that. There's been some artists who have started meme coins. There's still some activity happening that can support artists, and I'm with you. When I actually made money instead of losing money like I do now, when I made some money on meme coins last year, I did have a hard and fast rule to take 20% of my profits and enroll them into art, and I bought art. So I think there can be some positives with the meme coin frenzy that's going to happen, and I don't think it's going to die anytime soon. So I appreciate that take. That's a fresh take, and it seems so PvP, but I think we can actually coordinate our efforts together, and there can be a net positive with meme coins being part of the ecosystem. Also, I would note that NFC included MemeCon this year, and they're very art focused, but ordinals, AI, meme coins, they were all part of a 5-tier prong approach, which I thought actually did really well. There was a lot of intermixing of crypto cultures that I wouldn't normally mix with. So I thought that was a healthy addition. But I see NB has his hand raised. NB, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump on PB's point really quick with the AI being an educational tool. I don't really talk about this side on my page, but that's basically all I'm doing. Like we have a huge resource of digitized media and books. We have less now since the internet archive's down, but when it's up, we have a lot more. But what's really interesting about that is that it's there. And it's phenomenally interesting stories and histories and tales. It's all written, it's all spell checked. People don't like to read. They really don't like it. So as of recent, I've been using like AI or trying to use AI, and I implore you to find creative ways to use it as well. But the small ways I found to use it is to use the historical pictures, turn them into videos, animate it, right, using AI, and then I trained a 11 Labs voice model to narrate it. So now it goes from being an article into short form content. And it's really kind of interesting in the ways that definitely AI can help educate and take some of these more complex and boring kind of things and make it like palatable, I guess, for the masses. So I think, I did that with the stuff from the 1960s, but I think it would be really interesting as well to see it recontextualized with the stuff from the 2020s, 2022s. And then, instead of putting it on Twitter, put it on TikTok where the kids see it and stuff like that. So it's definitely an interesting rabbit hole and something that's worth exploring.
I love that actually, especially the last point that you made where you're going to bring it to a new audience, like drop it on TikTok and let's expand outside of just the same echo chamber, which is I think why I get a little frustrated with, just using, I guess, Twitter or following. It's because for me, the biggest thing is how do we cross-pollinate? And Milton mentioned NFC and then bringing in so many different communities, whether it was the ordinals, the meme coins, and obviously the art focus. That's how I think we're going to be able to grow. So great point. I know Woman joined the stage. I don't know if she had something directly to respond to that because I think it was originating from your tweet. Woman, if you want to jump in, and then fuck me, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to forget you either. We'll be right. We'll pass you the mic in a sec. But Woman, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of add to what PB and everybody's been talking about this AI thing, and like my brain has just been going crazy ever since I saw this Truth Terminal AI that created this meme coin and ran it up or whatever, about how all of these problems that we have in our space that we've all been like super frustrated about over the past few years, especially, it just seems like nobody can solve these problems, like artist discoverability, how do we onboard new collectors, and it just my mind went crazy when I saw this. I was like, why can't we use AI for these things? Like we as humans have failed failed constantly with our platforms, everything, just not solving these problems. And now all of a sudden we have this, super intelligence. Why don't we use this to our advantage as artists to get collectors in here, put the word out. If this, AI can pump this meme coin in a week or whatever, just by tweeting out a million tweets about it, why can't we do that with our art? Why can't the AI become a collector? I just saw today that Brian Armstrong offered this AI its own wallet. Why can't we sell our art to this AI now? Like, my mind has just been going crazy, and I feel like we need to use these tools that we have at our disposal now.
I think that's a great point, especially the part where you talked about funding the wallet, because that's how Truth Terminal started.
Right.
It was given a Bitcoin by Mark Andreessen, and so why couldn't that AI choose to acquire artwork? I think that's a great point. Bado is a great example of an autonomous artist making it big in this space. I think that's a hot meta right now, and I don't know why we haven't used it to our advantage. Obviously, NB's using it to his advantage to recontextualize historic art and bring it new life, but I think we should be creative about how we use that tech. So somebody smarter than me with AI should jump on that.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
thanks for starting our wheels spinning, woman. That's a great point.
Yeah, exactly. I obviously don't know how to do it, but there's definitely so many intelligent people in this community that we can work with that would help us do this.
Yeah, appreciate you chiming in, and please, if it's not up there, okay, good, we got it on the jumbotron. Yeah, so I was looking for that myself. Make sure to go interact with that tweet, bookmark that, and share it with your friends who are smarter than myself at AI. I would love to get some good responses on that one. So I wanted to pass the mic to Fami. You've been waiting so patiently, Fami, and then I see Ryan's hands raised. I think we'll probably try to wrap around an hour and a half at this point. I don't like to stretch these to 2 hours. But we got time for a couple more responses before we start to close down. So, Fami, hey, how are you? We met in New York, I believe. It's good to see you
Yes, we
here.
did.
How you
Hello,
doing?
hello, and hello to Vasia too. Thank you so much for giving me the mic. And I see Paper Buddha PB, you there too. Hi, hi, and Ryan. So a lot of friends down there. And good afternoon from Texas. I just wanted to come up here and say, I am absolutely so inspired and enjoying this conversation because it's a rarity to come to spaces nowadays and to actually hear some intelligent conversation that gets people to think. We don't get them to start thinking, and that's why when you started talking about the herd mentality earlier, because we talk about that quite a bit, and that's one of my pet peeves, the cookie cutter thing that goes on, not only with the rest of the crowd, but the cookie cutter. They start cookie cutter of their own materials, and they start stagnating, and they don't take that risk to open the doors and go explore. And I always say this in my space, it's like. If you have everybody has a bloody iPhone kind of thing, and you get updates, you're used to the phone, you're used to the digital device, but you have to get the updates all the time. So it's the same I feel here. We're used to what we're doing here, we're getting used to it, but let's go for the updates. Why are you not updating, which is again awareness raising and education and knowledge and moving out from what else can we do. So I think this is so important because fear is a huge thing that becomes a block. And it's easy for me to say it, but it's not easy for when it comes for one to do it. And we can talk about all the things needed, but it's the how that's missing in conversations. Conversations love to talk about, like this is needed, that is needed, that's missing. Okay, we've gone past that. How do you go and take care of things? How do you help each other? Is there a solution, and are we following those solutions, and are we implementing those things and encouraging each other to do such? So I just thought it was a great conversation, and I wish to see more of these kind of conversations in spaces. They should, people definitely should come back and listen to these replays, because sometimes you're too involved in being a speaker or doing several tasks. But calm down and listen and take notes, because it does make you think. And so I really appreciate this conversation that y'all are having and this space. And so thank you so much for that. That's all I wanted to say, because that's what I try to push myself. It's very important for me to raise this kind of awareness. I guess the educator side of me, or maybe hashtag blame my gray hair. I'm at that point of life where, I just feel like, okay, what am I giving back? I've done a lot of taking. Let's see, what am I doing now? So that's where I am. So, but anyways, so again, thanks a lot for, I know y'all are trying to shut down the space. So I'm not going to be a mic hugger, which I am very good at, by the way.
No, not at all. Thank you so much for joining the conversation and contributing. And I do remember our conversation. We met in New York as well, and the educator background. I think that's what it is. The educator in us. Really, what you just mentioned about having some kind of how, like, what do we do about it? That definitely is important to me. And actually, I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to give the mic to Ryan so he can add his last few points, and then I'll wrap up the space with a few key takeaways. Because at the end of the day, yeah, it's great. We're all agreeing. We're having a great convo, and then we're going to walk away and do nothing. Like, that's a waste of my time. So let's be impactful. Ryan, go ahead. You could share your last few thoughts, and then I'll wrap us up.
Yeah, for sure. Everybody knows I love AI. I've been using AI in my art for like 2 years now. And I was watching YouTube yesterday, and it was talking about AI and talking about Minecraft. Now, these people took this AI, they put it in Minecraft, and you can see how it builds marketplaces, it solves problems, and it is really crazy to watch. Like, just Google on YouTube, like, Minecraft and AI, and it's like someone in the game gets lost, this character gets lost, and AI assembles this crew. They put torches out all over the town so that it lights it up like a beacon, so that this person can find their way back. Like, it is insane, and it's so cool because, like, it's just, like, I was born in the 80s, right? Like 1980. Like, this is futuristic. It's so awesome to be a part of. But that's my last two things. I got to go to work. Love you guys.
You call it cool, I call it scary, but potato, potato. I appreciate the contribution, Ryan. Thank you so much for joining. But yeah, AI is definitely the future. It's inevitable. So like Woman said, let's use it as a tool to really help us all. I'm with it. I definitely agree. And I know there's a couple of people definitely using it to push the boundaries and really innovate that are listening into today's space as well. So yep, AI is here to stay. I agree. And on that note, I guess I'll just wrap us up. Thank you guys, first of all, for tuning in and listening. We are here every Wednesday, same time, same place. And like I mentioned in the beginning of the space, it's important for me that these conversations don't get just lost in Twitterverse. So we are going to be slowly releasing them on YouTube, on Spotify, and other platforms where it's almost like an archive of these conversations. Hopefully we can continue to add value. And just to wrap up today, I guess the key takeaways from my original question, if there's any hope, I think just my 2 cents is just be the change you want to see. And I don't think this behavior in general is ever going to change regarding people wanting to pump their bags and the whole hype train culture. But I think it's really important to, first of all, speak up and have discussions like we're having today. Because if we don't, then we're part of the problem. And it's a matter of also just leading by example. So, collect who you want to support and just kind of do you. And I think people will be watching and seeing that and spreading, what you think is most impactful. And then I also just think that, pumps in general, they're going to happen. So why don't we just at least position the right people in those leadership roles? If we're going to be pumping anyone, let's pump people that have some depth, some history. I think there should be certain credentials. And again, just cementing the right individuals in these leadership roles that we think are going to carry a long-term investment value and just have a positive impact for the space. I do think another big question that was brought up on today's space was kind of the role of the marketplace, and a curation, I think, was also mentioned a lot. So maybe that'll be a topic of conversation for next week. But yeah, I think those were my main takeaways. Milton, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I just wanted to thank everybody that jumped on the stage, particularly Yanni, who prompted this conversation today, and all of the great speakers that came up and chimed in and even provided some comedic relief. Thanks, Chris and Violet. You're always good for that. We need you back next week for sure. No, but I think there's a lot of good things that were discussed today, and I think there's definitely some actionable items. I would just encourage everybody, as I said before, just look at the people in this room, because I don't think it needs to be said, but we're definitely in a commercial nadir, a bottom spot of the market. So if people are here, they're here for the right reasons. I hope that the people and the artists that are in this room right now are the ones who get pumped, the next go round, you sure deserve it if you're still here. So glad to see you here. Glad to see you plugging in. And I'm glad that we could stimulate some interesting conversation that got well more than an hour like we expected. So that's a good sign. But I would encourage everybody to, take away some of these action items, be the change that you want to see, and join us next week because we're going to keep these good conversations rolling. I think marketplaces were on the tip of everybody's tongues today, and it definitely deserves its own space. So I think we've already got that lined up for next week. But come back and see us, give us a follow, and we'll check back in with you next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And we'll see everybody soon. Take care, guys.
Thanks for tuning in to Moments the Podcast. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to subscribe and follow us to keep up with all the latest trending Web3 topics. Join us every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern on X for our live space and be a part of the dialogue.